Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 kill team video, where today I'm going over the updated rules for the Novitiates kill team. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Did you find it useful? And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out for free in the episode description below, an affiliate link at Element Games and Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support as well. But let's get on with today's video, where I'm using the free rules which you can find on Warhammer Community as well as on the kill team app. So let's get on with it. For the roster, Novitiates can still select Recount on Security, which is unchanged and a very excellent combination. You are still a 10 operative kill team made up of 1 leader and 9 other operatives. You have a Sister Superior, who can either have a plasma pistol and power weapon, relic bolt gun, or bolt pistol and power weapon. Then you can either take a Condemner, Dialogist, Duelist, Exactor, Hospitalier, Militant, either with a Novitiate Blade or Autogun, then a Penitent, Preceptor, Pronatus, Purgatus, or Reliquarius. And then other than the Militant and Purgatus operatives, you can have everyone once, and you can have up to 2 Purgatus, which is unchanged. So everything's pretty much the same here. For faction rules, you have Acts of Faith. In the ready step of each strategy phase, you gain a number of faith points equal to half the number of friendly Novitiate operatives that haven't been incapacitated, rounding up. Whenever a friendly Novitiate operative is shooting, fighting, or retaliating, or an operative is shooting it, in the roll attack dice step or roll defense dice step, you can spend your faith points to use 1 act of faith. You cannot use more than 1 act of faith per sequence, and their costs are effects as follows. So this has changed. You used to be able to use 2 per turning point, the reroll and then whatever. Now it's 2 per action. So you have Guidance for 1, which lets you reroll 1 of your dice. Blessings for 2, which lets you change 1 of your normal successes into a crit. And then Intervention, where you can retain 1 of your normal successes as instead of a fail. So what's happened here, you've had a lot of your acts of faith removed, so you've only got 3. Guidance is the same. Blessing actually used to be 3 on offensive, so it's gone down to 2 overall. Intervention used to be 2, now it's gone up to 3. So you've already got, like, at the moment, turning point 1, you'll have 5 acts of faith, so you can spend a combination of these, and you will get more per turning point, because before you used to get 3, and then you would get extra based on stuff. So technically you already get more as long as you have full force. For strategy ploys, you have Ardent Vengeance. Whenever a friendly Novitiate operative is shooting against, fighting against, or retaliating against an expended enemy operative, that friendly operative's weapons have the punishing weapon rule. This is new, I believe. It's a new one. It replaces your infinite range pistols. But considering how you can just force a crit for 2 faith points, it's very, very good. Then you've got Defenders of the Faith. Whenever an operative is shooting against, fighting against, or retaliating against a friendly Novitiate operative that contests an objective marker or 1 of your mission markers, in the resolve attack dice step of that sequence, you can halve the damage inflicted on that operative from 1 success. So Defenders of the Faith used to be, I believe, like a free fight or shoot at the start of the turning point if you're on an objective, and it costs 2 command points. Now, so this is kind of, in my opinion, this should be once per turning point. I know why they haven't put the once per turning point restriction, but it was a problem with Star Striders, and it will be a problem here, because every time someone's fighting or shooting at you, as long as you're contesting an objective marker or a mission marker, which is new, you have to round it down the 1 attack dice, so you get to choose. You just halve it rounding up. So it triggers, if you fight twice, it triggers during both of those fight actions. If it's during a shoot action, it will trigger during multiple shoot actions. There's a reason it was restricted, so I hope that they put it back. I know why they didn't, but it makes this team kind of too swingy. Then you've got Blessed Rejuvenation. Whenever you spend faith points at the end of that action, that friendly operative you spent them on gains a number of lost wounds plus D3, equals the acts of, well, the faith points you've spent. Note this ploy has no effects on acts of faith that don't cost any points, i.e. from the auto chastiser's equipment. So if you spent 4 faith points, so you did intervention and then you spent 1 for guidance, that'd be 4 plus D3, so you effectively fully heal. The interesting thing, as a strategy ploy, means it's always active, but you do only have 7 wounds. But with that damage negation, now you see where the problem is, because if you have Defenders of the Faith up and Blessed Rejuvenation up, you actually do get a lot of acts of faith. So if someone gets chipped down, like only 1 success gets through, they go down to like 5 wounds. You just proc 2 faith points, like 2 guidances or whatever, and then you're fully healed, or even 1. So it's kind of crazy, because remember, the healing lasts for the entire turning point as long as you spend acts of faith. Then you've got Righteous Advance. Up to 1/3 of the friendly Novitiate Operatives in the kill zone, rounding down to a minimum of 1, can immediately perform a free dash action in an order of your choice, but each that does so must end closer to the closest enemy operative, its closest objective marker, or your opponent's drop zone. You can choose separately for each. Cannot use this during turning point 1. So now they get a free crazy dash, which is really powerful. It does make this team quite command point, draining, but that's really good. The fact you get like, you will get, if you have 10 operatives, you get 3 operatives that can do this, but extra mobility is great, especially for a team like this. Then for Firefight Ploys, you have Glorious Martyrdom. Uses Firefight Ploy when a friendly Novitiate operative is incapacitated. For each enemy operative visible and within 2 inches of it, you gain 1 faith point and inflict D3 damage on each enemy rolling separately. So this is unchanged. Just, you blow up. But I think you can potentially generate more faith points now, where before I think it was just D3. So that's nice. Then you've got Blazing Inferno. Uses Firefight Ploy when a friendly Novitiate operative is shooting with a Ministorum Flamer and you retain any critical successes. The target gains 1 of your Blaze tokens if it doesn't have one already. Whenever an operative has 1 of your Blaze tokens is activated, they take D3 damage, and its controlling player can subtract 1 from that operative's APL until the end of that action to remove that token. Now, this must be done before the operative performs any actions during that action. So effectively, you flame someone. If you've got a crit, your opponent now has a Blaze token. They immediately take D3 damage when they next activate, and they can choose to basically -1 APL from themselves to remove it. Otherwise, just stick it on. So this is actually quite good into elites and even every kill team, especially 2 APL teams. That's really crazy. I think it should have, the order of things, that the D3 should have been second, and then the APL thing should have been first. So you have the choice to just remove the APL, and then not get any effects, or take the burn. I think the way it's ordered is a bit unfair, especially as how torrents work. Then you've got Blinding Aura. Uses Firefight Ploy when an enemy operative is performing the shoot action and selects a friendly Novitiate operative as a valid target until the end of that activation or counter action. While your friendly operative is more than 2 inches from that enemy operative, your opponent cannot select it as a valid target. If there are no other valid targets that your opponent can select, the action ends. It's not cancelled, so the operative has still performed it. Note this ploy has no effect if it's not the selected operative, i.e. it's a secondary target from a blast. So this used to be an act of faith you could use every time you were shot. It is now once per turning point, and it is a command point. The crazy thing here is before, if you couldn't get a shot, you were refunded. Now you're not. So if you are taking a shot at Novitiates, you have to make sure you have a second valid target, just in case the first one fails. It is only once per turning point, but it's more powerful now, but it's less spammable. So it's something to keep in mind when you're playing against this team. Then you've got Guided by Faith. Uses Firefight Ploy when a friendly operative is performing the shoot action, and you're selecting a ranged weapon. Until the end of the action, whenever that operative is shooting an operative within 6 inches of it, that weapon has to seek light weapon rule. This is fine, the team is generally max 6 inches range, so this is really good. Nice, just nice seek when needed. For operatives, you have your Novitiate Superior, who is effectively a battle sister. She's 3 APL, 6-inch move, 3 up save, and 9 wounds. So that means if we ever got a future sister team, maybe they'd all be 3 APL. But otherwise, she's got a Plasma Pistol, which is 4 taxing on freeze, 3-5, range 8, piercing 1. The Supercharged mode, which is 4-5, range 8, hot, lethal 5 up, piercing 1. A Relic Bolt Pistol, which is 4 taxi on freeze, 3-5, lethal 5 up, range 8. And then a Relic Bolt Gun, which is 3-5, lethal 5 up. A Gun Butt, which is 3 taxi on freeze, 2-3. And then a Power Weapon, which is 4 taxi on freeze, 4-6, lethal 5 up. She's a little bit worse because she's still on 2s. But I actually think, you know what? You probably just take the Relic Bolt Pistol now. You don't have to worry about overcharging. Piercing 1 isn't that great anymore. And you can kind of just ensure crits with your Acts of Faith. And you always take the Power Weapon. She's got Inspirational Example. Whenever this operative incapacitates an enemy operative, you gain 1 faith point or 2 faith points if that enemy operative has a wounds stat of 12 or more. Note this rule has no effect when using the Glorious Martyrdom Firefight Ploy. So this has also been nerfed because she used to be able to group activate. So she would activate, then if she killed or did a mission action, someone else could activate within 3 inches. This has now been changed to just she gains Acts of Faith on kills, which she can still do quite reliably, especially as 3 APL. She has only 4 attacks, but into most teams that aren't elite, she can charge, fight, and shoot quite reliably. Still good. She's gone up a wound, but she's lost 1 to hit, and she can't really chain activate, but still very powerful. She does miss infinite range pistols, but they didn't really make sense in the first place. Then you've got your Condemner, who has 2 APL, a 6-inch move, 4 up save, and 7 wounds, which is the standard profile for your team. Your sister superior is on a 32mm base, everyone else is on 28mm. She has got a Condemn the Stake Thrower, which is 4 attacks, hit on freeze, 3/3, Devastating 2, Piercing crits 1, Silent, Anti-Psyker, and then it's got the Null Rod, which is 4 attacks, hit on 4s, 3/3, Shock, Anti-Psyker. So the Null Rod. Psychic range weapons cannot inflict damage on this operative. For the effects of psychic actions, this operative cannot be selected and is never treated as being within those actions' required range. Whenever an operative is within 6 inches of this operative, they cannot perform psychic actions or use psychic additional rules. The enemy operative cannot use psychic ranged weapons. Psychic melee weapons have no weapon rules, cannot have the damage stats higher than 3/4. So effectively the anti-psyker rules that we saw with Assistant Silence. Then it's got the anti-psyker ability. Whenever this weapon is being used against an operative, it has a psychic keyword, add 1 to both the damage stats of this weapon, and it has lethal 5-up. So she's actually been buffed in that regard, because against psychic units, she'll go to 4/4 on her Condemn the Stake Throw with lethal 5-up. She did used to hit on 2s, I'm pretty sure, but otherwise, still very, very good. A permanent silent operative that can move, so you could reposition 6 inches and shoot, or if they're +1 APL, reposition, dash, shoot. Very, very good. Then you've got your Dialogus, who has an auto pistol, which is 4 attacks, hit on 4s to free range 8. So you will notice most of your operatives now hit on 4s. So you've got a Dialogus Stave, which is 4 attacks, hit on 4s, 3/3 Shock. She's got Stirring Rhetoric as a support. For 1 action point, select 1 friendly Novitiate operative visible to and within 6 inches of this operative, or within 6 inches of your auto broadcaster marker. Until the end of the operative's next activation, add 1 to its APL stat to a maximum of 3 after all changes have been totaled, so they can't really affect the leader unless it already is -1 APL. Then you've got the auto broadcaster for 0 action points. If your auto broadcaster is in the kill zone, place it within 8 inches horizontally of this operative. Otherwise, move your auto broadcaster marker up to 8 inches horizontally. If this operative is removed from the kill zone, remove your auto broadcaster marker from the kill zone. Whenever an enemy operative is within 3 inches of your auto broadcaster marker is shooting or fighting or retaliating, your opponent cannot reroll their attack dice or defense dice. This is actually incredibly powerful. Very good into teams like Blooded, who live on rerolls, but even like a lot of elites who generally have built-in rerolls have to pay for rerolls. This is quite a huge bubble. It's effectively just a bit larger than a 6-inch bubble. Very nice. Your comm is very, very useful. Then you've got your Duelist, who has an auto pistol and then dueling blades, which are 4 attacks, hit on freeze, 4/5 ceaseless riposte. So riposte is whenever you block with a critical success, you can also inflict damage equal to the weapon's damage stat on the enemy operative in that sequence. So your Duelist has gone up in damage. It used to be 3/4, now it's 3/5, and it still does the lethal damage. Well, it still does damage when it parries. So effectively, if you strike with a crit, well, if you block with a crit, you're striking at the same time. So your Novitiate Duelist is a lot better, especially with the damage negation too. Very, very good. Then you've got your Exactor, who has Neural Whips. So the ranged profile is 5 attacks, hit on freeze, 2/3 range free, lethal 5-up stun. And then melee, which is 5 attacks, hit on freeze, 2/3 lethal 5-up shock. It's got Whip into Frenzy for 1 action point. Selects 1 other friendly operative excluding the superior, visible and within 3 inches of the operative that isn't currently benefiting from the effects of this action. Until the end of that operative's next activation, add 1 to its movement stat, and it can perform 2 fight actions during the activation, and 1 of them can be free. So she used to give +1 APL. Now she just whips someone, makes them move 1 inch faster, and lets them double fight, which is amazing. So you have lost that ability to get +1 APL, but there are less missions. You know, mission markers on the objective, like there's only 3 objectives. If you're playing Recon, you kind of have to be a bit annoyed by this, but otherwise this is a really good buff. Then you've got your Hospitaller, who has an auto pistol and surgical saw, which is 4 attacks, hit on 4s, 2/3, lethal 5-up rending. She's got the medic ability, so if someone dies within 3 inches, they're left on 1 wound, and both operatives are -1 APL. And then after, the operative can do a dash action, but it must end its dash within control range of the medic if it does so. Then you've got the Shuriken's Tools for 1 action point. You heal someone within control range for 2d3 wounds, and it can't be that someone used the medic ability on. Still very useful, especially in the shooting matchups. Then for your Novitiate Militant, this is your normal trooper. They can either have an auto gun, which is 4 attacks, hit on 4s, 2/3, an auto pistol, which is 4 attacks, hit on 4s, 2/3, range 8, a gun butt, which is 3 attacks, hit on 4s, 2/3, and the Novitiate Blade, which is 4 attacks, hit on 4s, 4/5. Then you've got Militant Faith. Whenever this operative is shooting, fighting, or retaliating, if you use an act of faith during that sequence and an enemy operative is incapacitated, the faith points spent on that act of faith are refunded. If you use the icon of faith equipment, faith points are only refunded for 1 of those acts of faith for your choice. So they gain, once again, faith points on kill. They were better when they hit on freeze. Now that they all hit on 4s, I don't think it's really worth it. Maybe like the melee blade option into some matchups. It's not really good. Then you've got your Penitent, who is 4 attacks, hitting on 4s on 2-3 with its pistol, and then Eviscerator, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, 5-6, Brutal, Zealous Rage. It's got Zealous Rage whenever this operative is fighting with this weapon as the Ceaseless weapon rule, and then Absolution through Destruction. Whenever this operative performs the fight action, if it is incapacitated, it can merely perform a free fight action afterwards. This takes precedence over action restrictions, and you cannot perform more than 2 fight actions in succession as a result of this rule. If this operative is benefiting from the effects of Whip into Frenzy action, see the Exacta, this applies to each of the fight actions from those effects. So effectively, your Penitent can fight 4 times, which really doesn't seem right, but unfortunately that's how the wording works. So she charges in, she hits you, and if she's whipped, she'll fight again after that sequence, then fight for a second time through absolution through destruction, and then fight again with the whip. This doesn't seem right. It looks like it works that way. It doesn't seem like that's the intention. Personally, as a TO, for my events, until Games Workshop actually fix it, I would say you just get the +1 movement benefit. You don't get the quadruple fight. But I know other places aren't doing that, so I would always err on the side of weakness. Don't go too crazy, because if it gets removed and you're relying on abusing that, then it won't really work. But technically, you can argue the Penitent can fight 4 times, but there's no way that's intentional. So it's just poor wording, which unfortunately has been quite a common trend throughout all these reviews, which is a bit depressing. But otherwise, your Penitent is still very, very good. Then you've got your Preceptor, who's the Mace of Righteousness, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, 5-5, Brutal, Severe. This is hit on 3s. So you've got Unflinching Example. Whenever this operative incapacitates a ready enemy operative within its control range, you gain 1 faith point or 2 faith points if you had 12 or more wounds. You've got Glorious Hymnal as a support. Whenever a friendly Novitiate operative is within 3 inches of this operative, that friendly operative's weapons have the Severe weapon rule. So she used to give an aura of rerolling defense dice, which is frustrating that that's kind of gone for the Novitiate players. But once again, she's turned into a faith point machine. To be fair, with 4 attacks, 5-5, Brutal, and Severe, she's really good at hunting down Marines that are only 3-4 in damage in close combat. And, when she's killing someone, you get 1 faith point on a 7 wound model, which you will kill, and then into a 2 wound model, a 12 wound model or more, you probably actually will kill them, especially if you whipped into a frenzy. And with Brutal and Severe, you're always going to, at least if you roll 1 hit, turn that normal into a crit. So very, very good. And she gives the ranged weapons Severe as well. So even if you're moving up turning point 1, turning point 2, you can actually have her sit in your backfield, buffing your ranged operatives, then countercharging when opponents get too close. Then you've got your Pronatus, who has an auto pistol and gun butt. It's got Relic Seeker, so once during this operative's activations, it can perform the pickup marker, place marker, or mission action for 1 AP less, which is unchanged. Then you've got Divine Acquisition. Once per turning point, when this operative performs a mission action that requires it to control an objective or mission marker, you can gain a number of faith points equal to the turning point number. So the only issue is you can't score this turning point 1, but turning point 2, when you do this, you'd get 2 faith points. Turning point 3, you'd get 3 faith points. And then turning point 4, you get 4 faith points. She is really good for sitting at your backfield objective or doing stuff like scoring your attack ops. So if you've got you've got recover items, plant signal beacons. Probably for plant signal beacons, she's actually really good for doing that. So you've got a nice use for her there, so she doesn't just have to sit on objectives. Then you've got the Percatus, who has the Minister and Flamer, which is 4 attacks hitting in 2s, 4-4, range 8, saturate, torrent 2. So it's got Purge with Flame. Once per turning point, you can use the Inferno Firefight ploy for 0 command point if it specifies this operative. And remember, you can have 2 of these operatives. So they have gone down in dice, but up in damage. So they used to be 5 dice 3s. Now they're 4 dice 4s, which is really powerful. They have lost their Dagger Dash ability, so before they used to dash and then flame. This will probably upset a lot of Novitiate players, but you've got that strategy ploy dash, so you have ways around it. They were too strong with the dash and flame, but you always take 2 Pergatuses. They're very, very good. Then you've got your Reliquarius, who is an auto pistol and gun bar icon bearer, so they count as +1 APL for controlling objectives, but it's not a modifier. Then you've got Raise Icon for 1 action point. You gain 1 faith point. If this operative controls an objective marker, you also gain a number of faith points equal to the turning point number. and you can only do this once per turning point and cannot perform one control range of enemy operatives. So I think if you wanted to go for the faith point machine, you would have your Pronatus running around doing mission actions, scoring you like extra faith points, while your Reliquarius sits on your home objective, capping the objective as well. Although you could play more riskily with her and have her defend the midpoint, where you have both operatives securing your objectives, gaining you active faiths. It just depends how much you want to play defensively. I believe it did used to be 7 wounds, or that was an error. So regardless, it just exists to capture points and give you acts of faith. So your mileage may vary depending on who you're facing against, but I actually really quite like the Reliquarius. Then for faction equipment, you've got Icon of Faith. Once per turn, you can use up to 2 acts of faith during a sequence, but each one must be different. This takes precedence over the normal acts of faith rules. You always take this. It basically allows you to go change a normal to a crit and a success fail to normal. You just always take this. It breaks the core rules of your ability. I don't know why you would never not take it. Then you've got Sanctified Rounds. Whenever a friendly operative is shooting with an auto gun, auto pistol, or relic bolt pistol, or relic bolt gun, if you spend a faith point, that weapon has the piercing crits 1 weapon roll until the end of the sequence. And this is just always active. I guess it's because they're only 8-inch range. I'm surprised it doesn't say like up to twice per turning point. Very weird that doesn't have this kind of restriction, but okay. Then you've got Auto Chastisers. Once per turning point, when a friendly Novitiate operative is shooting, fighting, or retaliating, in the roll attack die step, you can inflict 1 to 3 damage on that friendly operative, but not enough to incapacitate it. If you do, you can use 1 act of faith for free during that sequence, where faith points cost no more than the damage you inflicted from this rule. So you could inflict 1 damage to get a reroll, 2 damage to turn a normal to a crit, or 3 damage to turn a fail into a normal, which is nice. Then you've got Holy Embrocations. You can ignore any changes to the moveset of friendly Novitiates operatives from being injured. So overall, you have amazing equipment. Like, every equipment is a solid piece of choice. Personally, I'd always take Icon of Faith, Sanctified Round, and Auto Chastisers, and then just a universal equipment. I don't think Holy Embrocations is great. It doesn't really suit this team. It's really good in general, like, ignoring move stats. Oddly, this is great into Hyrotech Circle because you get around their nanomine. But otherwise, well, actually, you would, if there's equipment that would slow down your movement, then Holy Embrocations will get around it. But it's just more of a niche pick. I think it's something you would just take specific matchups. But otherwise, really good equipment overall. For Operative Selection, this is a bit difficult because technically you can get away with a 1-box team for Novitiates. So you could go Sister Superior and then your 9 other operatives. But I think you now need 2 boxes. So you need 1 box and then half of another box, just so you have all the options available to you, because you have 10 specialists and that's excluding your leader. So it's going to have at least 1 left over. And I believe 1 operative can also build either 1 normal person, the sniper, or the Purgatus. So it's going to be effectively, you will need a 2nd box unless you choose not to build something. So if you were going from 1 box, generally I would always build, as I said, the leader with the bolt pistol and power weapon, because especially if you're taking the equipment that gives you piercing crits 1 when you use an act of faith during that sequence, just always take the bolt pistol. And then I'd build a Condemner, 2 Purgatuses, your Pronatus, your Penitent, your Exactor, your Duelist, your Dialogus, your Reliquarius, which leaves you at 10 operatives, and then I would use the 2nd box to build the rest. The reason I'm saying that, you do lose, you don't have the Duelist, but the Duelist is okay. It's not as good as it used to be. Like, it is more damage, but I don't think it's that great. Depends on the matchup, really, especially when you're using to parry out and force damage. But I really like the Reliquarius now, because coupled with the Pronatus, it gives you tons of faith point generation. That mean you basically, every time you shoot and fight, you're just like re-rolling dice, changing stuff. I think it's very powerful, and just having an unlimited supply of faith points is just too good to pass up. But that's why I'd recommend the 2nd box, because then you can build all the other specialists to slot in depending who you're playing against, as well as building the odd militant with blade, because on some matchups you just need their 4-5 damage and just hope you roll well with your rerolls, and then changing stuff from normal to crits and crits to normals. So it's difficult, but also quite expensive. But it is kind of how Novitiates have always played, unfortunately. For the Novitiates Overview, this kill team is very good. Like, they were always good in the last edition. I actually think they might be a bit better now, partly because Games Workshop has continued with their poor wording practices, where they, what do you call it? Like, it's just little stuff, as like their damage negation is just always active. So it just completely applies to the same operative no matter the turning point, which is like, usually it's just once per sequence, once per turning point. But for Novitiates, it's just always active. Then coupled with your healing ploy, if you only get like chipped most of the time, you're just fully healing stuff back, which doesn't feel exactly fair or fun to play against. It's a little bit toxic. And especially when you kind of realize you can just end up with almost infinite faith points. It's kind of crazy, because then, especially with your equipment, you're changing like, as well, you still can only change one normal to a crit and then one fail to a normal, but then you're like spending all your acts of faith for rerolls. You've still got very, very good ploys. You can still shut down shooting. This team is quite deadly close up, and like, you know, there are only pistols, but everyone can get P1. Like, it's very, very good. This team is still very highly skill based, and you know, you do have to be on objectives and mission markers for your damage negation. But considering how you can just centralize on the objectives, your opponent can't even send one operative to clear you out on the point. A Space Marine could probably do it, but then they're just like sometimes dedicating 2 fight actions to kill you. This team has always been anti-shooting, which I think a lot of people have forgotten. And they are missing the flexibility of some of their acts of faith, but they still have that free dash ploy. The Pegatuses are still as deadly as ever. So this team is really, really good. And I think they're going to be, especially on Gallowdark, because Gallowdark is mostly wide, large rooms now. This team is even better on Gallowdark. So, you know, it's very, very good. The other thing was Blinding Aura. It doesn't matter about your order. If your opponent is more than 2 inches away, they just can't shoot you and it's just wasted. So this is really, really good. So I can definitely see this team doing well, especially as your sister superior is now always free APL. And then if you whip, or you can't whip her, I believe, but it's just that now she can charge, fight, shoot all the time instead of having to invest in giving her APL. And, you know, technically you have your Penitent fighting twice, and you can whip someone else to fight twice if you needed. So you've got way more flexibility. So this team seems really, really good. Just needs some tidying up with wordings to make it a little bit more fair to play against. Maybe even a cap on how many faith points you can generate. But otherwise, they're really, really good. And having recon and security, they probably actually want recon, because recon gives you more mission actions to do. So if you wanted to sit your Reliquarius on the backfield objective, and then you have your Pronatus just running around doing mission actions to gain you acts of faith in your kill zone, well, in your territory, that's completely viable as well. They're just really, really good. It's nice that they're still doing well. I'm just a little bit annoyed at some of their wordings. But it's good for a Season 1 team to be very, very strong in mostly a sense that makes sense, because they don't just believe in having infinite range pistols anymore. And like, I really like how the auto chastiser actually does damage where before it didn't, and it just gave you ceaseless. But that's pretty much it for me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video and what do you think of the new Novitiates. Remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description for free below, an affiliate at Element Games, an affiliate at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my Adepts of the Crit, I have Zombie Businessman, Tom, Supercow, Stephen, Sam, Nick, Mercenary Q, Mr. Meatworld, Lucas, John Thomas Graham, Fangzu, Draken, Dave Meatswell, Darcy, Dad of Golden's Chris, and then for my Veterans of the Crit, I have Samja, Ryan, and Mark. So that's pretty much Novitiates done. They're still really, really strong. Kind of annoyed the more I go through these reviews, the more I see the consistent, like, odd errors that kind of cause these unintentional problems. But I guess they did have like 35 teams to do at once. But I'm almost through. Today is technically Chow Nath Day. So if you're watching this on the day of release, I've got Pathfinders coming up. Isn't that great for Pathfinders? I can't wait to review those. But remember, no matter how many historical nuns you're fighting against, there's always a chance to win as long as you can roll a crit.